Hello again, YouTube. This is Raising Cane, Richard. I have not made any videos in a while because it's been too damn hot to ride down in South Florida. I did make a trip up to Tail of the Dragon in North Carolina, Tennessee border, and also rode Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Me and a couple buddies took my flatbed trailer up with 3 bikes total, Indian Scout and a Honda Rebel 1100 and my Yamaha. But that's not the purpose of the video. I wanted to, been wanting to show this for a while. I wanted to show these sort of auxiliary fog lights. They're not turn signals. They're cheap ones that I put on the bike, and I'll put links to the Amazon link from where I bought it. They were about $24 each, and I mounted them. Let me show you. These are yellow, but depending on how you wire them, you could also make them white. And they are very, very bright. They don't necessarily project too much light outwards to help me, but what they do is make me much, much more visible to the other cars. The contrast between the white headlight and these bright yellow lights is significant, and my friends that were with me on this trip told me that they could see me from a mile away in the rearview mirror. So I think it actually catches drivers' attention, which I'm very pleased with. And I can adjust the angle slightly. I have them pretty tight, but I can if I want to adjust them up and down. And I want to explain a little bit on how I actually installed these, or in what manner I installed them. Where this is there are on this side and the other side, there's two 6mm bolts. I think they're about maybe 35 millimeters long, that screw in to hold the front of the fuel tank on. That bolt, and I'll show it in a minute, along with one of the lights, because I got extras because they were so cheap, sits in there in a little bit of a recessed well. Okay, so what I did was I had a local welding shop weld together a 6mm and a 5mm bolt back to back, sort of making like a stud, and it's all stainless. And then the 5mm screws into the light, or the light screws into the 5mm side, and then there's a flare nut that I use to back against the light to affix it tight. And then the 6mm nut screws in, and I use 3 washers that fit exactly the size of that recess to have it flush. And then finally I wrapped it with about a 1/4 inch wide self-fusing tape so that you can't really see where the weld is. So let me show you that. So here's the light itself. And guys, I apologize, I'm not a YouTuber. I don't edit. This is a single take with my iPhone, so bear with me. Basically, here's the light. And again, it'll light up either yellow or white depending on how you wire it. I installed it with these 3 wire plugs. Oh, and the way that it goes in, if you take off this front cover part, the wiring of the light actually threads up underneath there, and it fits fine to the other wiring that I did. Now I have this wired into a plug that is switched with my ignition, and I'll link to the guy's video. I think his channel is called Lindsay Travels. He's from New Zealand. Nice YouTube videos he does, also with an XSR 900. Behind this panel, and it's easy to take off. You just take off the headlight, and there's a couple little bolts that this cover plate comes off. But on this corner side, there is an unused plug. I don't think there's anything wired to it. The fuse for it's only 2 amps, and I did wire in both my phone charger, which I did very similar to the way he did. There's my phone charger, and these lights, so that with the ignition on, the phone charger is powered as well as these lights. So back to the light. So this black screw is the original screw that came out of it. It did not come with the washer. But that's just to demonstrate that the washer is pretty close to the size of that screw head, and that washer fits precisely into the recess of where the bolt goes in. So that's the 6mm, and in the video description I will put the specific links, and that's a 5mm bolt, and they're basically back to back. They have to shave off the markings so that they're flush against each other, but then welded together they basically make a stud. And then there's a flange nut, and everything's stainless except for the washers, which are aluminum. there's a stainless steel flange nut that has some serration so that it grips the light when it's screwed in. So you got the flange nut on the 5mm, the two welded together. That's a 10mm bolt or 10mm wrench that will thread this into the tank part. And then these 3 washers that recess it, and it sits against it flush. Now, wrapped around the weld point is this self-fusing tape. It's silicone self-fusing tape. You can also get that on Amazon. It's inexpensive. This is a 1-inch wide strip, and I basically cut about 4 inches long and split it down the middle, so it's about a 1/4 inch wide strip for each light. And then I basically just wrapped tight the weld point, and it fuses to itself, so it looks kind of factory. If I ever have to take the light off, just slit it with a razor. It will expose the bolt head and just unscrew it. The way I would take this off is you would take off this panel first. Easy. It's just the 4 little bolts, the 2 little plastic push pins. This lifts off, and then it exposes where my plug plugs into the rest of the wiring that I ran up to that up to the Sumitomo plug that's up there. So here's the light itself. They're inexpensive. I bought 2 sets because I don't know how long it'll last, but the reviews were pretty decent. And it screws in, the 5mm screws into that part or the side or the top. So I didn't like having these exposed holes for the parts, the unused parts. And there's a little fan in there, by the way, that cools the LED. It is an LED, so it gets kind of hot, but I've had no issues with it at all. So that's the light, and really happy with it. If somebody's considering doing this, maybe you can do the same. I like the way where it's located, and it's spaced far enough apart that it looks good, I think. Maybe not to everybody, but I like it.